Hello, and in the week that Gloucester win the Battle of Hastings as Cipriani leaves Gloucester, has COVID wrecked Exeter's European title defence, Bordeaux bashed the Dragons, and London Irish are top of Europe, the Challenge Cup, but we're still top of something, and all of that's to come on this coveted show of the Ruck Maul podcast. It's our Christmas special, and we'll be finishing off with the end of season's awards. So all professional rugby players out there, strap yourselves in, because you might win an award. Before we get into the weekend's games, though, a couple of transfers from the week. Cordero, Santi Cordero's quash rumours that he was going back to Exeter and has re-signed, I think, a 2 or 3 year deal at Bordeaux, which is very, very exciting. Danny Cipriani's obviously left Gloucester with Adam Hastings coming in. But before we'll go back to that in a minute, but I don't know if you two have seen in the WhatsApp for about half an hour, I've just seen on the rugby paper that Hugh Jones might be coming to London Irish, which would be a fantastic signing if
it would.
But apparently he has turned down previously a £275,000 a year deal at Leicester. So I can only see that the Irish are going to pay him at least 300, which
it's quite a lot of money.
Which will be a lot of money. But Irish like spending money on players. But actually, generally, this would be a very good. I think it'd be a good pickup. I like Hugh Jones. I'm a big fan of him in attacking sense as well. So that's not 100% confirmed yet, but that'll be a decent little pickup for Irish if they can get that over the line.
His contract is expiring with the SIU at the end of this season.
Yeah.
He's one of in fact, there are a lot of players whose contracts are expiring at those two Scottish clubs, and obviously we've already seen a few of them commit to foreign, i.e. English clubs mainly, already in the last couple of weeks. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see Jones leave, and I think it's going to be something we see more of, because there's no barrier to signing these guys like there will be increasingly with foreign players. They're UK nationals. There's no issues. There's no admin that the clubs need to do. There's no further concerns in terms of that kind of thing. And the English clubs have more money than Scotland can pay for them. So it's a good way of getting international players.
Yeah, I think it works both ways in a both positive sense. Yes, unfortunately, Edinburgh and Glasgow are probably the losers out of it because they don't become as strong as they are. However, you look at someone like Duncan Weir, for example, who was in the international wilderness, goes to Worcester, 2 great years at Worcester, he's back in the Scotland team, and Scotland have got a decent third choice 10 there. Like Stuart Hogg's going strength from strength. Like Johnny Gray's come out of his brother's shadow, moving to Exeter. Fantastic. Like if Juan van der Merwe completes the Worcester deal, which we think he will, that's another great avenue. These guys are going to play week in, week out at a higher level, which the Pro 14 isn't, though that it will diminish Edinburgh. But it gives Edinburgh an opportunity, and it gives Glasgow opportunities to get the next Scottish guys coming through. So I think it's a win-win, really. So on that, we'll go up to Joe, though. Joe, Adam Hastings, what do you think of with Cipriani? Austin He's come out this week and said he's not that good. So Gloucester are quite good to get rid of him. I don't know what your thoughts on Cipriani.
Cipriani, yeah. I mean, I've probably said... Sorry, mate, I didn't mean to cut you off. I've probably said a few times on this podcast, I've definitely said it plenty of times to you guys over the chats and stuff. I haven't rated Cipriani since he had that really good season at Gloucester just before the World Cup. And I think the reason behind that was that he was trying to show Eddie Jones what he could do ahead of trying to get selected for that World Cup. As soon as he didn't make that side, his performances have slipped a bit. And there's obviously something probably going on behind the scenes in terms of the director of rugby, and they moved on and Skivington's come back in and nothing's really changed in terms of performance. And so I can't say I'm too fussed about him moving on. He was really good to have there for a little while. He was always one that brought the hype, and people were always interested to see what he was about to do. But yeah, he's been playing rugby for a little while now, and I think his best years are behind him. So it's good to get somebody in who's a little bit younger. He's younger than I thought he was, actually, Hastings. He's only like 24, isn't he? Something like that. So I've seen some great performances from him in a Scotland shirt, and I've not seen a lot of him for Glasgow, but certainly if he's able to turn in some performances for Scotland, then surely he can do it for us in the Premiership as well. So yeah, I think he's a really good acquisition. He obviously knows the West Country a little bit, was a Millfield boy and was in the academy at Bath. So it's not an area that's unfamiliar to him. So hopefully he'll settle in well and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. And I think similarly, Professor Ladzi, the centre, didn't he go to Hartpury?
I think someone said that, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So they're doing very well to reincorporate guys who have obviously they've obviously are aware of these players, and they will have some level of goodwill towards Gloucester. And there are a huge number of professional players who pass through Hartpury, maybe not necessarily the top level, but there are a lot of them, and both at the school and then the sort of college, university age period, if they can keep track of players like that, and if they are sufficiently attractive to bring them back, that's a huge resource for Gloucester.
It's, as I say, on that, I'm not going to repeat his name because I can't. But with the
Ladzi,
there you go.
I think
with him coming in, like, as I say, he scored that fantastic try in the autumn. There, obviously, Ryan Ackerman leaving Gloucester took a lot of players with them, with him, which they now, with Skivington's now got his blueprint. I think, though, I don't know, Cipriani wasn't picked after a bit of a dodgy game against Leicester, so he kind of fallen out of favour. I think it works both ways. I think they've made some good signs. I think Carrera's coming in as well is a great one there. We talked about that last week, Harry. The underratedness of him. He's going to be ridiculous, I think, for Gloucester. Obviously, they've got to wait, but it will feed nicely into our first game discussion of Gloucester's 38-34 win over Ulster. Lloyd Evans actually thought that is now the start first choice fly half there. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. Took the ball to the line. Great distribution skills. There was a bit where he used that classic Cipriani wraparound where the ball goes to Mark Atkinson and out the back. Shows that you don't just need Cipriani to do that move. I think they've got a guy that is a decent enough player to stick in there, and he'll have time to run away with that. But I think Gloucester look pretty good. They've struggled in the Premiership off to a slower start. Got absolutely hammered by Leon the week before, but with a relatively rotated team out. But yeah, great result against Ulster, a strong Ulster team.
Yeah, it's a really good game, and I was really impressed with Lloyd Evans because I think he's come through the academy and he's still quite young, but he's had the benefit of a couple of years of coming in bit part performances, and he's clearly learned from Cipriani because he seems to be developing into a bit of a similar mould in terms of those lines that he runs and those passes that he creates. But he had a few really nice touches to set up some field positions, and then most of our tries actually came through rolling mauls. So what he did really well was to get us on the front foot and make the breaks up to get up the pitch, and then our forwards seemed to have that part of the game nailed down. But I think, yeah, I was a bit worried at the start of the season when it looked as if he was going to be our first choice, and as Cipriani was on his kind of downward spiral, if not the right way to say it, but he was on
slightly out of form, let's say.
Yeah. So, but I've got a bit more confidence in him now, having seen that performance and knowing that he had a man of the match not long ago as well. Hopefully he can keep us going, keep us afloat in this season. Then him and Hastings working together next season will be a pretty good pairing.
Yeah.
It's always good when these second choice fly halves step in and are good, because it's clearly very, very difficult to play 10 at any level, and even more so at top level professional level. And every so often a team starts a player and it just doesn't work. So there was always that possibility, and Evans has done pretty well.
Well, on keeping it on fly halves, if we shift it to our beloved Bordeaux, absolutely destroying the Dragons, Matteo Jalibert, finally, some BT commentators have taken up our mantra of identifying players we think are quality and actually getting on the bandwagon. Matteo Jalibert is honestly one of the best players in the world right now. He is that control that he brought to that Bordeaux. Attacks the line, his kicking, his passing is absolutely world class. and I just can't believe he's the second choice French fly half at the moment. It's that as I said, that French depth is crazy. But Bordeaux looked good again. Cordero got a hat trick, which is always nice to see. His footwork again was absolutely fantastic. But they've got it. I mean, I don't know. I see at the moment with France picking the back row options, but bloody hell, Diaby and Woki have got to get themselves in that French 15 somehow. I mean, them two together is an absolute combo.
How old is Diaby? Do we know?
I'll have a look, but Woki's still very young.
Very young.
But they were absolutely fantastic again. They've put themselves, obviously a shaky start against Northampton the week before, away from home, but really asserted themselves at home in a really good performance. Dragons not in the same level. I don't think the quality that they have. They don't have it. They've got Nick Tompkins, but again, that was just shut down. I can't remember who the lad. I think we've got a Kiwi lad at 13. I can't remember his young lad, but he looks pretty good with the experience of Lorray in the middle. Isn't Lorray in the middle? I can't remember. But yeah, Bordeaux looked very good again. Without and we're still waiting for what's his chops, the Argentinian lad, to come in. What's his name? Dookie. Is it Dookie? Who's the lad?
Sorry.
We've got the Argentinian lad, haven't we? The fullback.
Oh, the who? The
fullback. Oh, but sorry, Johnny. Bautista Del Gui.
That's it.
Yes. So he was registered in the squad for this weekend. I think he could have played, but I suspect it was slightly early. Probably not been there that long. Don't know how good is
Diaby's 30.
Okay.
He's been around.
Well, he's the captain.
But he is seriously good. Him and Woki together work so well. So yeah. Bordeaux looking pretty good. Anyone else on Bordeaux, or should I take it somewhere else?
It's just the most exciting thing in rugby is a small stepping winger just completely taking over the game. Cheslin Colby, Jason Robinson, Santiago Cordero. That is the pinnacle of what's fun to watch about rugby, because in theory, a lot of the game is won by being stronger than the guy in front of you, but what that means is a lot of the people on the pitch are absolutely massive. But when the smallest guy on the pitch is the most effective, even as a forward who is often not the smallest player on the pitch, it's so good to watch. And yeah, undervalued, I think, sometimes these players. It's difficult to work out how to use them, I think, because it sort of relies on it being a broken game. But yeah, when you can create the broken game like Bordeaux do with Chalibert and Woki and the offloading game that they have, pretty good.
As I say, that they'll be up there. They're well in touch. I think the French teams at the moment look particularly good. Racing today against against Quins just absolutely dismantled them. They were just again on another planet. They've got so much world-class talent. Like we talked about him last week with Donovan Tuamafina. He got more of the ball in open space today, and he is just going to be something ridiculous. Teddy Tomat, have you seen the game? You seen that game?
A couple of the clips. I haven't seen the full either.
After this, do back and watch it. The Teddy Tomat try for me is absolutely fantastic. Takes the ball off the line out, crash up the middle, runs over. I think it's Marcus Smith. He just runs over the top of it and just runs diagonally into the corner. Just completely outpaces everyone in that Quins back line. Just quality. Finn Russell, again, we were speaking about the Scottish guys that have gone away and gone to different places. That makes a massive difference again. And Finn Russell in there, playing the mercurial talents. Vakatawa was injured, but then they just pull in Kurtley Beale just to play 13 and was good in there. And our friend of the show, Machine Machino, had a good game. It was nice to see him start at 9, my boy. He was good. A great performance from Racing. They topped that group. 2 good wins. Leinster, the machine carried on against Northampton. Northampton got themselves back into that game though, but early on from what I saw of it, Leinster did look quite overpowering. But the shock really was Munster, 39-31 away in Clermont. Clermont really put themselves in a fantastic position to win the game. Just what's his name? Yato was playing the second row, he was running around like a crazy madman. But they just switched off, and Munster just were like, right, we'll just chip away. Got a couple of tries, and there you go. A win against Clermont in a strong Clermont team in the Stade Marcel Michelin. Like, it's a fantastic result.
Yeah, I mean, Munster in European games, they're always going to do something special, and it's not really clear how. Like, they have a few star names this year, but it's often just a conveyor belt of just really effective, solid. Yeah, solid is the word. Players with a few stars here and there, but yeah, it's always quite good.
And really, finally, the last one to really talk about from Europe point of view before I wrap up the European Challenge Cup was Wasps 33-14 win over Montpellier at home. Harry, as the Wasp fan in the room, thoughts?
Early red card, I've heard.
Yes.
But always, obviously, still got to do it. Still got to execute. 14 men is more than enough to win a rugby match. Makes it harder, but yeah, I mean, good. And it was a young team. I think I can never remember his name. Is it Phillips? Charlie Phillips, the young 10 who started. Obviously,
Atkinson or Phillips.
Oh no, Atkinson. Yes.
Against Said last year.
Very, very good.
Yeah, the one that got his head taken off by Farrell.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Barberi got a brace again. He's won the kick. There's a kick where he kicks it like 70 meters up the pitch, which is absolutely crazy. Apparently, he wants to play centre.
He did play centre at school.
Apparently, he wants to move back to centre.
Don't blame him.
But I mean, I wouldn't say no to that. Anywhere that kid plays at the moment, he's absolute dynamite.
I saw some of his numbers from the game. It's
pretty good.
He's not particularly huge. He's not like ripped in any sense. Like you wouldn't look at him and think this guy is going to absolutely dominate and just be completely unable to stop. But somehow he does. I think it's that combination of balance, and he just always knows how to slip out of the tackle that he's in. Obviously he does very frequently just smash people, but the agility as well to roll out of tackles in the sort of the same way that Sam Simmons does. I think it helps that they're both a bit shorter. It's one to watch, let's say.
Most definitely. And before we get really, the last thing from me really from the rugby point of view is I do want to talk up my beloved London Irish. I've bagged them a lot on the Ruck Maul podcast, but we're turning it around, boys. A 26-17, ever since we went to Brentford, things are looking up. A 26-17 4-try bonus point win over a relatively young Poe team. Just very quickly on Poe, you need to keep an eye out for De Baez, their fly half, who looks like basically a crapper version of Mathieu Jalibert, but still very, very good. Labal at 9 was very good. I mean, his box kicking was ridiculous. I mean, he was kicking the ball about 45 to 50 meters up the pitch from a box kick, which is really, 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 really impressive. I don't know if you just slightly off topic, but I don't know if you two remember when we went and saw Bordeaux Poe with when Conrad Smith was playing. I don't know if you remember the Poe replacement tight head, Habanadash, the massive bloke, like the humongous guy. He rocked off the bench. His stats were mad from the game. I think he had about 10 carries from like 10 minutes. It was ridiculous. Every time I popped up, he had the ball, but we just kept nailing him because bless him, he couldn't really move that much. But very interesting that something to note was Adam Coleman came on 47 minutes. He was then taken back off again with 2 minutes to go. I don't think he was injured. We did go off under his own steam. So obviously they were just giving him minutes. I mean, he came off with 78 minutes on the clock. So with Munga coming on. But London Irish they're starting to go in the right direction. I mean, Nick Phibbs is just ridiculous in that team. Quite simply ridiculous. So if Matt Phillips listening, who's just signed at Poe, You could get your contract terminated, Matt, and come over and join the other green team. That might have been when you got a little bit confused. They both play in the same colour, but and Rob Simmons has arrived this week, which is exciting. But someone to go and check out the highlights and look out for Phil Cockanasinger's second try for Irish. It is flipping brilliant. Like it's a solo piece of genius, and he does a Phil Cockanassinger ash splash thing in the corner, but he's all right to do that because it was a very nice finish. But Irish sitting top of the pile after 2 games, which is great. I'm in a mood at the moment. But no Naholo yet, and no Sean O'Brien, which is concerning. But hopefully we'll see both of those back after Christmas. I'm guessing that they would have given them until Christmas to get fit and get back again. But yeah, Irish in a good position at the moment, which I don't really say very often. And that's really all the rugby we've sort of seen from the weekend. But what we thought we might do for the last bit, as it's the 25th episode of the Ruck Maul podcast, so we're halfway to 50 and a quarter of the way to 100. We do our team of the year. We'll do a player of the year each, and maybe a moment or game of the year if people can stretch that far. But are you two ready with 15s, or would you like me to do mine? Start.
I've got it. Don't mind, it goes first.
Make our cases for alternatives as we go through.
Cool, yeah. Shall I go then?
Yep.
Lovely. I struggling for a loose head. Someone just can really jump in here. I've gone with Mako at loose head, unless someone else has got anyone different in there. Just because he's the most obvious choice.
I don't think he played.
Yeah.
I've been wary of including Saracens players in this because.
Don't worry, he's the only one. Oh no, he's not the only one.
Obviously, he played a lot for England and was very good for England.
I've got Joe Moody at loose head. He's a loose head, isn't he?
I had Joe Moody. I had thought about Joe Moody. So I'm happy to go with Joe Moody. Let's go Joe Moody at 1. I have the try-scoring machine, Folau Fainga'a, at 2.
Yeah. So I've got Luke and Dickey.
Another try-scoring machine.
Yeah, but also seriously good in every facet of the game.
Yeah. I did think about Karen Dickey, but I actually changed it as we were having that conversation just now about Alfie Barberi. So in terms of we've gone for, or what you said certainly at the start of this, Johnny, was people we enjoy watching or enjoyed watching this year, thought had standout performances. So that's what I've kind of gone for in my 15 of those that I've included. So yeah, I've gone for Barberi because he's been electric to watch in the second half this year.
Number 3 will divide opinion because Harry Berryman called Carl Sinclair the best prop in the world. He's not in the 15 in my opinion. I've gone with the Tongan Thor Tanane Tupou because I love watching him play, especially from watching the Reds this year in Super Rugby AU. Just quality, and he was really good when he came off the bench against New Zealand, against Argentina as well. So I've gone with the big Tongan Thor tight head.
Joe?
All right, so just I think he's had a great year, and I think of that Aussie team that have had a few good games, but a few worrying bits of rugby. He's been quite a good kind of shining piece of light in that.
Yeah, no, actually, I have Sinclair written down, but I would not argue against. You can't really argue against the season that Tupou's had. The Reds scrum was far and away the best in the Super Rugby AU. He was fantastic in the loose while also dominating in the scrum, which was. So he's always been very, very good as a ball carrier, but there were not quite questions, but it's harder to prove that you're an elite scrummager than an elite ball carrier as a young prop. And he's really done that this year, both for Australia and for the Reds. And yeah, I'm happy with that. Sinclair has had a good year, obviously.
He's
was
had
very good. Very good for Harlequins, very good for England. Coming into more form with Bristol now. But Tupu's
He's
quite
but I love watching him play as well, which is another thing. Another person I've really enjoyed watching play, and I love that he got a try in the last All Black game of the year, and that is the big man, captain the Blues to second place in Super Rugby Aotearoa, and that's Patrick Tuipulotu. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. I would arguably claim I'd have to see him now in a game after Maro's performances in the Autumn Nations Cup, who is better at the moment, but Tuipulotu is just absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love watching him play. I also really like his captaincy style as well. He's really brought that Blues X factor, obviously with Bowden Barrett in there for this year. Together, he's a guy that the Blues are going to turn themselves around with and become a really good force to really compete with the Crusaders next year. I really like Tuipulotu. He's going in at 4 for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could do these together, as you've said. Tuipulotu and Itoje have been the 2 best second rows in the world this year.
Yeah, I'd like to say, I know I mentioned him earlier in Poe thing, and I really do think, Matt, you need to think about your contract at Poe, because I do. London Irish are doing a great deal at the moment with Australians, and we would love to have a third Australian in second row. So Matt Phillip for me has to get mentioned, and I think he's been absolutely brilliant. I think he was brilliant for the Rebels, and he was a really, really good second row. Not quite on the same level as Amaro yet, and as that level, but he's. I was looking at him going, he's leaving Australia obviously, but when he was playing in that, it was like that's a bad thing for Australia to lose him, because he's their best second row now that was playing in Australia.
And it's quite weird, really. I mean, not that weird considering everything else you know about Australian rugby, but he's been quite good for the Rebels for a few seasons now, and it's not quite been, you could say that Australia's second rows were undroppable. I mean, Rob Sibbons has 100 caps, and he's good but not spectacular. So it's taken them a while to notice Phillips, but he's been really good for a couple of years, and he's been really, really good this year. And yeah, I'm glad that he's getting the recognition and hopefully the cash that he.
Oh, he will be definitely getting the cash.
Yeah.
I'll go from a back row. This is going to. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, so I had Itoje in there. I think Tuipulotu's been awesome as well. The other one I wanted to just mention briefly was Johnny Hill. I think he's had a great year and deserved his call up to England and deserved kind of starting berth there. And Itoje and Hill together, I think, are a really good pairing for England going forward. So yeah, I had Johnny Hill in there as another second row candidate, but I think you probably got to go with Tuipulotu and Itoje in the team that we select.
Yeah. The back row is going to divide opinion, and this is going to trigger a lot of people on the various platforms. But I'm going with this is purely based on who I think where they are in relation to not only world performance, but also people that I generally want to watch play. And I've just taken Ardy Sarvia out, so that's a spoiler. But I've gone Jack Willis at 6. I've gone my boy, the French captain Charles Olvion, because I absolutely love watching Charles Olvion play. And you do forget that he was the top try scorer in the Six Nations, and the Hoskins Tutu, because I've absolutely loved watching him play for Super Rugby Aotearoa. I love Ardy Sarvia. I think Ardy Sarvia is absolutely fantastic. But for me personally, I love watching Jack Willis play. I love watching Charles Olvion play, and I love watching Hoskins Tutu play. And I do think at the moment they are up there with in the best back rows in the world.
Yeah, I mean it's really hard to exclude Ardy Sarvia because he is
so good.
He like almost transcends being what a back row is, because you could list the things that you'd like your back rows to be able to do, and if they were the best in the world at one of them, that would be really great. Ardy Sarvia is the best in the world at almost all of the things that you like back rows to be able to do, and if he's not the best in the world, he's pretty close to it. And we kind of forget that sometimes because we're quite used to it now. But yeah, I've got him for all 3. Curry and Underhill combined into one as an idea rather than
Underhill.
necessarily
Jesus.
in a specific position, have continued to be absolutely fantastic. And yeah, Jack Willis and Satutu are both pretty special.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you of those. You'd have those 5 in your matchday squad, players 6 on the bench, and you'd win.
Yeah,
playing almost anybody.
I've got one more to add to that, and I know I'm going to be slightly biased here, but to be honest, it's more for his performances internationally than for club. But I've got Jake Pelledri as well.
Oh yeah,
I think he's awesome, and especially if we're going on people to watch. I don't think there's anyone that I prefer to watch as a back row player. The intensity that he brings is awesome. He just boshes people for fun. So he's had a great season, great few matches for Italy, and been in the kind of team of the week a few times, even in losses for Italy, which I think is quite a big thing in that Six Nations tournaments with some of the people that kind of France and England and Wales have got in that back row. But yeah, there's 5 or 6 awesome players in there that have had great seasons.
Always the toughest one to call is the back row. Going over to 9, or I had a tough one to pick at my 9. Tate McDermott. People know who I love about Tate McDermott. I think Aaron Smith's been brilliant. He was superb for the Highlanders and Super Rugby Aotearoa. But for me, there's only one person, and that's the best player in the world right now, and that's Anton Dupont.
So interestingly, this was the first name on my team sheet. Absolutely no questions asked. Aaron Smith.
Oh, interesting.
Dupont has been really good, but Aaron Smith is otherworldly. Dupont hasn't quite got the leadership that Smith brings. Like, Smith is the captain of my team. He runs, his passes go to where the player receiving it didn't even know he wanted it. He's been completely flawless this year for everything that his teams have asked him to do. The Highlanders were struggling. Smith just did more. New Zealand, they needed him to be the anchor around which that slightly disorganized backline worked, and it did work most of the time. Dupont's pretty special, but I think Smith is my favorite.
I would say I'd go Dupont purely based on similar arguments that you made there. I do think he made a massive difference in Toulouse's run to the top in the Champions Cup. He does that. The French resurgence has been really pushed around him, and the Intermac combination I really do think is exciting and electric, which I think he's what I like to call a game changer. Smith has been absolutely brilliant. I loved him for the Highlanders. I think he's been really good for New Zealand. I think, but his age as well. I just think Dupont can do more than him at the moment. Just electric anyway. But that's why I would go Anton Dupont. But either way, they're in the 20. They're both of them in the 23 and would make a difference. Joe, anything on Anton Dupont?
Yeah, well, he was the person I went for. I had Aaron Smith down, and then I started to list my 15, and I realised they're all Super Rugby Aotearoa players. And I had another think and thought, actually, there've been a few players that played really well in Europe this year, but for someone who has played a lot of fantasy rugby this year, Dupont has been the man in the Six Nations tournament. He, as you said, completely ran the show for France. Him and Intermac together, an awesome partnership, and I'm glad that they've been able to find that. Hopefully, they kick on and keep working together for France for the next few years, and that'll really kind of deliver them a bit more success than they've had recently. But again, Smith has been great too. I'm sat in the middle here. I don't really know which way to go. I can't really call it, to be honest with you. I don't care either of them.
They get 2 minutes each.
Yeah, it's completely 50-50.
Maybe slightly easier one to call is, for me, Flav is Richie Mo'unga. Purely on his Crusaders performances, let alone maybe less so for the All Black. I mean, he's struggled. I mean, I don't want to regurgitate the Bowden Barrett thing that they had there, but purely based on the Crusaders, he basically was the reason why the Crusaders won that tournament. He's absolutely fantastic for me. Intermac has been up there. Owen Farrell you can put in the conversation if you must, but they don't have the same impact, I don't think, yet as Richie does.
Yeah, I think most of the other players you could say as options for this, their best day is what Richie Mo'unga is like all the time.
Yes.
Like the sort of your absolute highlight reel of Marcus Smith or Jake Mo'unga from the Premiership. Less so Owen Farrell is a slightly different type of player, obviously, but the most exciting 10s in the world, the things you're excited about them doing, Richie Mo'unga will do those things, and it will stop surprising you how often he does those things. It helps that he's got the best club team in the world around him, and then similarly the best international team around him to make that possible, but still got to do it. And he does.
Joe?
Yeah, I've got Mo'unga in there as well. Yeah, he just completely ran that team for Aotearoa, and Crusaders was so dominant, partly mainly down to his influence, but not just the way he was be able to run the team and run the shape, but producing some magic himself. So yeah, it's got to be him for me. And as you said, there's a few other notable performances in there. Ntamack, I think, has been great for France. Finn Russell's had some really good touches for Racing. He's been amazing for Racing. He's obviously had a few troubles with Scotland. But in all, it's got to be Mo'unga.
Yeah. I realise I've got very few French players on my list, and that's not really deliberate. I've just not really watched enough of their games, start to finish, to fully appreciate it, if I'm honest. But I know every single one of these players has had either the second or third choice, could well be one of that French team, which is
and on that, like with the centres coming up now, Vakatawa has been absolutely fantastic, but Vakatawa for me just edges out by big old Semi. His impact at Bristol was absolutely fantastic, and he's just absolutely world class. And if you're going to pick a team with a player you want to watch, all I want to do is watch Semi Radradra play rugby. So he would be my 13, and I would pick. I struggled with 12 because I couldn't really think. I was like, who's really good at the moment? And then I realised I'd forgotten about Nani Laumape. I think especially what he did for the Hurricanes, his mate has carried stats, just says it all. He was probably their best player before he got injured, unfortunately. And I think he would have, if he was fully fit properly. He played a bit for Manukau in the Mighty 10. Not quite sure why the All Black selectors didn't really give him a shot, but after such a good Super Rugby Aotearoa, but he might not have been fully fit. But he for me was brilliant at 12. And I do generally love watching him play. I mean, that would be a combination of Laumape and Semi in the centre.
Terrifying, especially as Laumape starts to round out his skill set.
If he gets an offloading game in, he'll be.
Oh no, I think he's almost already there. He's not quite Nonu levels of playmaking from a ball carrying 12, but he's pretty good. He's certainly not a blockage point in the back line. He can certainly facilitate getting it out to the wingers. But yeah, those hard to argue with those two. Bordeaux were the best team in France until Radradra left, and then didn't fall apart, but they weren't severely not as good. And then Bristol have been one of the best teams in the Premiership since he arrived. These things are not a coincidence.
Tricky? Anything on that?
Can't really argue with that. I went for Laumape and Vakatawa. I think I've been really interested watching Vakatawa. I seem to have just watched quite a lot of French rugby, it seems. But I've been really impressed with Vakatawa. I've kind of known of him a little while, but the last few years, again, he's been an awesome fantasy pick. He started off as a winger for France a couple of years ago, but now I think he's made that centre berth his own. So he's been great to watch with Laumape being one of the better, following the Hurricanes more than anybody else in Aotearoa. He really was kind of their shining light, and I was really impressed with him every time he got touch of the ball. So yeah, if it weren't for that injury, I'm sure he would have played more games for the All Blacks. But that's whether you've got Vakatawa or Radradra in there, it's a very powerful centre pairing.
Yeah, very.
And then, yes. Anything else on that, or back three?
Would just like to say some slightly honourable, obviously a slightly lower tier, but Jimmy Gopperth very quietly had a very, very good year. For sort of shepherding in a very, very inexperienced fly half in Jake Mo'unga and similarly helping that Wasps team to the Premiership final. is at however old he is now,
God,
350 something. It's sort of easy to forget him because he's not the name on the posters. But he's been seriously impressive for a really long time.
He's just a brilliant rugby player, though, isn't he? Just a brilliant, and he just he's like a fine wine, gets better with age. I would also honour mention for Jordan Bataille. I think Jordan Bataille had a very good year as well. So shout out to him.
As again, Hunter Paisami, similarly, not quite as good as Bataille.
No,
but was very, very good.
His time will come, Hunter Paisami. He's one to watch. He was going to be my sort of player to watch for 2021, Hunter Paisami. If you've not seen him, go check him out. He's very exciting. Back three, I went with I've gone with Johnny May on one wing. I've gone with Cheslin Colby on the other wing because I was going to put Caleb Clark in, and I realised that Clark hasn't scored that many tries. But I do like watching Caleb Clark play. But then Johnny May isn't just at the moment so good. And from watching Cheslin play last week against Ulster and just making Jacob Stockdale look like a club player, so good. And then obviously I can't put anyone else but Will Jordan at fullback for me. Yeah, enough said. So for me, Johnny May, Cheslin, and Will Jordan is my back three. Honourable mentions to Geordie Barrett. I thought Geordie Barrett was superb at 15 for the Hurricanes. And they've made a mistake by putting him on the wing. He was absolutely fantastic. And obviously, Caleb Clark's been brilliant as well. And Sevu Reece over in a lot. We're talking about a lot about wingers as well. Tom Wright as well. I like Tom Wright. Speaking of Tom Wright as well. Good Wallaby debut as well. But for me, Johnny May, Colby, Will Jordan.
Joe?
I went for Caleb Clark because, again, I was doing this on how much I enjoy watching them play. I thought Caleb Clark was awesome when he kind of burst into the scene for the Blues in Aotearoa, and then managed to carry that forwards into the All Blacks. So I think it was great that they gave him a shot in there and hopefully gets many more caps for them. Will Jordan at fullback, obviously I thought he was the man of Aotearoa. Really, he was kind of one of him and Moanga really were the two players of the tournament. I think just every time he touched the ball, something happened. There were times where he came on and he'd score a couple of tries even within the dying embers of the match. So I think that skill is awesome to have and will really drive his teams forward, whoever he plays for, whether that's Crusaders or the All Blacks. And then 14, and this, he has had a couple of touches internationally, but again, this is kind of more for club and how he's burst on the professional rugby scene in general and how I love watching him play. Louis Rees-Zammit. I think he's some of the tries he scored this year for Gloucester have been amazing, and he had an amazing run at the beginning of the season where he was just scoring try after try after try. He's kind of slowed down a little bit recently, but I think that's partly due to perhaps the weather that he's playing in. He's probably a bit more of a fair weather player when the ground's harder and it's easier to get the ball to him, but he's certainly one to watch and a future prospect for, hopefully, if he continues to stay at Gloucester and for Wales as well.
Yeah, and just briefly on Rees-Zammit, I think it's again not a coincidence that some of the best Premiership rugby we've seen we have almost ever seen happen in that post-lockdown restart period. I know it wasn't ideal for a number of reasons, player safety, sort of jamming all those games together, playing 2 games a week is not really something we want to repeat, but the Premiership is consistently fantastic in those last few weeks of the season on the slightly harder ground, and that recreated over the summer was a real treat. And obviously this year has been very bad in a very large number of reasons, but it did allow that to happen, and that was really great. And Rees-Zammit was one of the big beneficiaries. In fact, a lot of the really exciting young players coming out of England, that was their moment, because there were no terrible games. You could get a good run of form going. On my back three though, Johnny May. What more can you say that hasn't already been said? He's getting better and better and better, and he's getting a bit older, but I think he's still got at least a couple of years more of athletic prime. He looks after himself so well. The things you hear about him, it's like hearing stories about how Ryan Giggs looked after himself, and he kept playing at the highest level till he was 38. Obviously, very different sport, but May is the best of the best in terms of wingers at the moment. My 14 and 15 were Clark and Cordero. 15 is more arguable, but Clark was amazing for the Blues, and then when he was on the pitch for the All Blacks, almost unstoppable. Similar to, as we sort of spoke about with Alfie Barbary, Barbary, I think, rather.
Yeah.
The balance to roll out of tackles while also being able to smash through people. It's very, very fun to watch and very, very effective. But then, yeah, for 15, Cordero was brilliant for Exeter at the end of last season, has been brilliant for Bordeaux, has been brilliant for Argentina. Malins has had one of those, we always knew it was there, but
breakout, yeah.
Like, just get him on the pitch. Years. Yeah. Will Jordan, as you say, very good. He actually played quite a lot less than we remember. He didn't play that many times for the Crusaders. It was obviously very impactful, but he was on the bench a lot.
Before lockdown, he didn't play either.
Yeah, he would just come on and score 3 tries, which is obviously quite impressive. But it'll be good to see. Obviously, we've had the squad announcements for Super Rugby Aotearoa 21. It'll be interesting to see how the Crusaders balance out their back three, because no one's left, and they've still got Manasseh Mataele coming back, who has been fantastic for them. It's we'll just see how high you can go, really. But yeah, happy to concede whichever of those 15 options to you, because they're all great.
I mean, I love Cordero. I do love watching Cordero play, and I really can't wait until the life changes that we'll be able to go back and see our beloved Bordeaux play back. And but now knowing Cordero is going to be there for another 2 years, we'll be able to go and at least see them before he goes, which is, can't wait. Can I push you for a player of the year? Your overall favourite player of the year?
Well, favourite or best?
However you want to interpret that.
The one that's caused me the most excitement is Hoskins Sotutu, because those early weeks for the Blues, when we just really hadn't heard of him, apart from seeing a couple of minutes off the bench last season in 2019, just appears and is absolutely amazing. And it's like that moment where you see a player who's going to be amazing for 10 years, when you see him for the first time, when the world is seeing him for the first time, similar with Alfie Barbary in the last month or so. That's one of the best things in sport, full stop. So I think it's between those two for me.
Yeah, on Alfie Barbary, it is. Way back when we started the podcast, and Super Rugby Aotearoa was really what we kind of kicked ourselves off with. We were talking about Hoskins Sotutu, and I was kind of sat there going, are we going to see anyone like that making a massive impact in the Premiership? And we found him, and that's Alfie Barbary. Like, I can't get over how good that kid is, and it's terrifying how much impact he is. And I kind of look at it and go, I took Hoskins with a pinch of salt to an extent. I think he's fantastic, but I always look back at, always talk about Super Rugby is defensively, are they all there? And I was like, right, if Alfie Barbary can stand out in a Premiership team where they are defensively so organised, blah, 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 then that is incredible as well. So yeah, he's been really, really impressive for me. I mean, I'm just going to stick to my guns from the day one, and that's Will Jordan. I just love watching Will Jordan play, and he will go strength to strength. Anyone that comes on who finishes a game of rugby after only 6 minutes with 2 tries and intercept and 165 metres is very, very impressive. And top try scorer, top point, like try scorer, metres gained, all that sort of jazz, like topped all the stats in Super Rugby Aotearoa. Good season for the for Tasman, and when he played for Tasman in the Mitre 10, just I love Will Jordan. Tricky.
Yeah.
Round us off.
I can't really argue that too much. Remembering back into the summer when that was all we were doing, was watching Aotearoa and talking about it. So often the talking point was about Will Jordan, and always changed the game again. And to change the game for a team like the Crusaders is a massive skill to have, because as a team full of Galacticos anyway, and then there's this young guy fresh off the scene who's winning them games. I think it's just a massive feat. So hopefully he continues and carries on the journey that he's started. But yeah, I just think not only is he changing the game, but in such an exciting way. Some of the ways that he scores those tries with those intercepts, and just the searing pace that he has is awesome to watch. So yeah, Will Jordan for me.
Yeah. So I think on that we'll sort of leave it there. What I'll give you guys a bit of homework on while we're here is to do, for the first pod of the year, we'll do a breakout watch out 15. So 15 players to watch out for next year in those positions. It might not seriously, might be more players per position, but we'll see. But as I say, what I'd like you to do is, obviously this is going to come out on YouTube. Do comment in the below like what your favorite 15 of the year is, or your best team that you might completely disagree with us. But it'd be nice to start building up that sort of stuff as well. And do give us a follow, do give us a like, and we'll see where 2021 can really grow this podcast. So thanks for those that are listening and taking us all in. But yeah, have a lovely Christmas, and we'll see you in 2021 for more Ruck Maul.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers.